Lately I've been messing with Shulkerbox storage tech, and all Shulkerbox sorters out there have one thing in common. You always see the designers opt to use dropper lines rather than hopper lines for their shulker sorters. The reason for this is quite obvious. Droppers, unlike hoppers, are not ticking blocks, and so just sitting here in the world aren't eating up any performance like these hoppers. But when we want to go ahead and sort our stuff and send them down to dropper lines, then that's when we activate the observer chain and it pushes our item through the dropper line. This basically means that the only time a dropper line is causing any sort of lag into the server is when it's actually running, when you're actually using it to, say, sort your shulker boxes in your shulker sorter. And the application of dropper lines over hopper lines for shulker box sorters in particular here makes a heck of a lot of sense. These things you're not going to be running 24/7, nowhere near that amount. Most of the time they're going to be sitting idle, so optimizing for that makes a lot of sense. But I did start to get curious about something. When active, how much performance do dropper lines consume versus hopper lines? This world right here will be used to conduct my testing. Or actually, more specifically, this world will be used as the control for my testing. This world here will be used for testing hopper lines, with composters on top of all the hoppers, and there being 35,000 hoppers in total. We also make use of structure blocks, and via redstone can refill these hoppers with items. That way I can test these hoppers while they're transferring versus while they're not transferring items. For item transfer tests, I will be using CarpetMod's hopper counters feature in order to destroy the items at the end of the hopper chains. And this world right here will be used for testing dropper lines. Just as with hopper line testing, there are 35,000 droppers here, along with 35,200 observers. Same as the hoppers, and so I got structure blocks that I can use to refill ends of these droppers with items for testing while transferring items. And to activate all of the dropper lines, I am simply using 2 command blocks, each one with a fill command, and that will replace ends of these glass blocks all along here on this right here clock. And I have confirmed this using CarpetMod's tick freeze and tick accept commands and such for each of the testing categories that I did. So if I just go ahead and activate that, then there I go, I got the clock running. And in cases where I'm testing while transferring items, the items at the end will simply be disposed by lava. Before we go over the benchmarks, I'd like to detail more about the testing environment in which these results you are about to see are derived from. Hardware used is a Ryzen 9 3900X, 3200 MHz CL14 memory, and a Samsung 970 EVO NVMe SSD. Running Linux Lite 4.8 as the operating system, with OpenJDK 11.0.5 for the JVM. Minecraft 1.15.2 with Fabric Mod Loader and CarpetMod will be the server environment I test in, with hopper optimizations being used for select tests. The server launch script uses JVM flags optimized for running a Minecraft server. If you ever spent a significant amount of time browsing the Spigot and or Paper Spigot forums, then you're probably well aware of these JVM flags and just how widely accepted they are as being the best for Minecraft. We'll also be dedicating 4 GB of RAM to the server itself. Server view distance has been turned up to 32 chunks, and command blocks has been enabled in the server.properties file. The world itself, as seen earlier, is a Y0 glass floor world with no entities and the following game rules set to false. 35,000 hoppers and with composters on top were used for a hopper line test, and 35,000 droppers with 35,200 observers for the dropper line tests. The results are the average of 5 runs of CarpetMod/tick warp command, with server restarts in between each run. To eliminate the potential issue of having the server and game client fight over which process gets to run on the highest performing CPU cores, and thus affecting the benchmark, I've opted not to run the game client itself while benchmarking. Instead, I use a CarpetMod player bot to load the area and execute tick warps from the server console. It should also go without saying, but I'll say it anyways, the server was basically the only thing running on my computer while benchmarking. The only exception to this was a Chrome tab with Google Sheets for entering my benchmark data and a word processor. Also, if you're interested in the raw data I collected during these tests, you can find the Google spreadsheet down below. Now on to the benchmarks. Starting off, I'd like to make a little note. I wanted to have error bars showing the standard deviation in each test category, but Google Sheets doesn't allow me to set error bars for each of the categories individually. I can only set them globally, which of course isn't really desirable. I've tried some workarounds, but none have really worked for how I wanted to format my chart. So if you're interested in the standard deviation for each test category, of which I did calculate them, you can find this information within my Google spreadsheet linked in the description. In future, I'll probably see about using Microsoft Excel or something for making my charts. Starting off for real this time, this chart shows the MSPT, or milliseconds per tick, the service event process in the game. Lower is better here. First, I'd like to highlight the control, a test within an empty world and nothing within it, which got 0.4 MSPT. Likewise, dropper lines that are turned off, as expected, perform the same as our control at 0.4 MSPT. Performance of hopper lines while transferring items was 8.9 MSPT and 14 MSPT when not transferring items. Hopper lines with the Hopper Optimizations mod did perform better than vanilla when not transferring items, at 11.4 MSPT, or an 18.5% performance improvement over vanilla. However, we did not see any improvement to Hopper performance versus vanilla while transferring items here, at a result of 9 MSPT. I should also note that I didn't enable all of Hopper Optimization's rules. I only opted to enable rules that wouldn't cause non-vanilla behavior, as I believe most technical players and servers would likely just use the safe optimizations to not risk any potential issues. Perhaps I'm wrong here, and if so, please let me know what Hopper optimization rules you think I should and shouldn't use in future testing. In contrast to hopper lines, dropper lines ended up giving worse performance while transferring items versus while not transferring items. The most comparable of these two hopper lines would have to be dropper lines with a 32 tick clock and a 24 tick clock. Dropper lines with a 24 tick clock, equivalent of 1/3 hopper speed, performed at 14.9 MSPT while transferring and 11.5 MSPT when not, with 32 tick dropper lines, equivalent of 1/4 hopper speed, coming in at 10.6 MSPT and 8.5 MSPT during this test. If you're wanting your shulker box sorter with dropper lines to have similar performance to that of hopper lines while running, and getting the performance benefit of dropper lines while the sorter isn't in use, then you would probably want to target sorting a shulker box every 24 or 32 ticks. That's not to say you wouldn't want to use dropper lines on a 16 tick clock. In most cases you'd be perfectly fine to, and if your shulker sorter can operate at that speed, then I'd say go for it, given you're probably not running into a shulker box sorter 24/7, and are not in a situation where most of the server performance is already being eaten up by other things in the world. This all said, if you had a hopper speed item sorter, I would not use dropper lines instead of hopper lines. If you're concerned about lag for your normal item sorter, just lock your hopper line with redstone when it's not sorting, or just use water streams instead. Well, there you have it. Honestly, I was a little surprised by dropper line performance. I expected it to be lower than what it ultimately came out to. Not to say that dropper line performance was bad, it's just I expected it to be a little lower. Anyways, if you got any thoughts, comments, well, you know where to put them. And on a side note, the testing methodology for this video, it has come a long way since my first performance testing video. And I've made a lot of improvements to it, so I'm kind of curious, like, what are your thoughts on my updated testing methodology? Any sort of tweaks I should make, or whatever? I do know one tweak I'll make for future is, in the last video I made the mistake of my tests were being too short, and now I've made the mistake that my tests are too long. Taking like 15 minutes per run, and I got 5 runs I gotta do per category. So, yeah, in future I'm gonna probably be aiming to have runs and to last about 3 to 5 minutes. Anyways, that'll be it for this video, everyone. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you all later. Bye.